So you've just picked up Battlefield 6, but you've realized you barely know which end of the gun goes boom. So you've come here today in search of answers on how to improve yourself. Well, come on in, get yourself comfy, and I'll teach you how to become the destroyer of men. Or maybe you struggle in one-on-one fights. If you're here for the shotgun dancing class though, that's down the street. Today I present you this guide with all the information the game doesn't tell you about how to be good at it, and as someone who's mostly a solo player who only plays infantry, that will be the focus here. But you might be asking, who the hell am I to teach you how to play this game? Well, I'm somebody who's been playing Battlefield since Bad Company 2, and while I certainly don't claim to be the best player in the world, I do alright for myself, and I think I can teach you a thing or two, whether you're new to the franchise or a returning veteran. So let's get on with it. The first reason you suck at Battlefield 6:
you don't move enough.
So, good movement is an essential part of Battlefield. A lot of gunfights will be won, and staying alive will be done through good movement alone. So let's start with some basics. Here's our enemy Timmy. The first thing to get yourself into the habit of is good old strafing. This is a shooter game classic, just going between pressing A and D, or the stick if you're on controller. This is just going to make you a harder target to hit. It's not difficult to do, it's mostly just habit and trying to remember to do it that's the hard part. What can also be helpful in amongst this is a little crouch every now and again. Just one, maybe two. Gunfights don't last very long, but this is just another means of throwing off the enemy's aim for a second and buying you a little space to not get shot. Now, we don't want to go mad with this because it does look ridiculous. Crouch spamming like this is not going to do you any favors. You can see the crosshair gets bigger, it affects our aim, but just throwing in that little one or maybe two just throws people off a little bit and makes you that harder target to hit. I have my crouch key on C and on hold, so I only have to tap C to make this happen, and again, it's just a habit to get into. So you've got your strafing, you've got your crouch tap. What about the controversial subject then of jumping? A move despised by some as a Call of Dutyism, and you know, I get it. But largely in Battlefield 6, it's actually not that great and is very much a high-risk maneuver. Sometimes it can be helpful, other times it can just get you killed. So if you're not comfortable doing this, if it feels like too Call of Duty, then just don't bother with it. You don't need it to be a good player at all, I don't think. It's a high-risk, high-reward maneuver. It does affect your accuracy quite heavily. You can see that on the crosshair when you jump. There is one place it can be useful, but we'll get to that later. Actually, two places. If you end up close point blank with somebody, a jump can get you out of their line of sight quickly. So, strafing and crouch tapping, honestly, they're the kind of things you want to be doing most of the time, really. If you're in a gunfight, it's going to make somebody miss. If somebody sneaks up on you and starts shooting at you, it could also make them miss. And this is true even for sniping. You can't just lie back on a hill prone or sit still, it's gonna get you killed. A little bit of strafing, a little bit of crouch tap, you'll be amazed how many enemy sniper headshots you can duck with a crouch tap. So, just like in real life, sitting still too much is not going to do you any favors. And this applies across most situations of infantry. Let's say I wanted to cover this angle, I'll cover any enemies coming from this direction, and I'm just going to stand here like this. This is incredibly risky because if somebody spots you first and they start shooting at you, you're probably going to struggle to get out the way quick enough. Whereas if you're moving all the time, strafing, crouching, proning, this just makes you harder to hit whether it's an enemy you've seen at the same time or an enemy that snuck up on you. Again, just a bit of simple movement is going to save the day here. But let's talk about probably the most important key on your keyboard or button on your controller:
prone.
Prone is probably the most underutilized form of movement in Battlefield, and it's one of the biggest things that's going to keep you alive. I recommend if you're a mouse and keyboard, put it on a key that's easily accessible. I'm not sure what it is by default, maybe Z, but I have it on the side of my mouse on my thumb button. It's easy accessible and I can press it in a millisecond, and that's the kind of situations you're going to need it in. Times when you need to get out the way of enemy fire quickly, especially as in Battlefield 6, it comes with a dive if you go sideways or backwards, and that can get you out of danger quickly, and it really just plays into the main function of staying alive in this game. You want to minimize exposure. It's all about breaking line of sight. As an example, I'm showing this tree what for, and somebody starts shooting at me somewhere to my right. Now, freeze framing, I can see that he's here, but in the moment I don't notice this. All I do is mash prone as quickly as possible and get down. What this does is breaks line of sight, and that's what it's all about. Breaking line of sight, minimizing your exposure to enemy fire. You've got to learn to use the brows of hills and any kind of cover to keep you out of sight and minimize that exposure. Only when you want to look for targets or when you want to shoot at a target should you be up and staying up for any lengthy amount of time. And even then, you should be strafing, you should be crouch tapping, keeping the movement going all the time. I can't stress enough how important prone is to staying alive. When you start taking damage, might be time to prone and dive out the way. Look how much health I have here. That prone probably saved my life. Or here, exposed out in the open, somebody starts shooting at me, don't know where they are, gonna prone dive and get out of there. In close quarter situations, it can be very handy if you get caught throwing a grenade, throwing down a medkit, reloading. A little prone dive might make the enemy miss and give you enough space to fight back. And yes, this makes it a drop shot, which typically isn't a good idea in Battlefield. You're very vulnerable when you're just led on the floor in front of someone. So use this when you get caught out and the only other option is death. So use prone a lot. It's a great defensive tool. Break that line of sight, minimize that exposure to enemy fire, and you should generally have a much easier time staying alive. Now, to Battlefield's most controversial movement mechanic, it's of course...
Slide.
So sliding is a thing that people feel a bit uneasy about. This is Battlefield, not Call of Duty, blah blah blah, and I get it. Battlefield 3 is my goat, and I always used to be in the camp of, death to sliding, but I've kind of just come to accept it. It's in the game, there's nothing you can do about it, but you can kind of choose how you use it. I think there's two different kinds of sliding. There's offensive sliding, like this, where you use it to beat somebody in a gunfight to make them miss. Maybe you're fine with this, or maybe it makes you feel a little bit dirty if you do it, but honestly, I think this kind of sliding is optional. It can sometimes be pretty effective, but sometimes it just slides you into a headshot, like so. So much like jumping, it's a high-risk, high-reward maneuver, and I don't think you need to do offensive sliding to be good at the game. Except for maybe in this one situation, let's say you know somebody is around the corner and they're looking this way, you know where they are, they don't know where you are. You could just pop out like this and there's potential you'll catch them off guard and you'll be able to take them down before they get you. Ideally though, if we have the advantage of knowing where they are, we could try to find a better angle to shoot them from and never step out in front of their crosshair in the first place. That's going to be the safest option, but if the enemy does know where you are, it might go something like this. Take this guy here. We obviously now both know where each other are because I just took a shot at him, and he has no other angle to approach me from. It's either run away or step out where he just was. And because he knows I have a shotgun because I just shot it at him, you would think that from this range he wouldn't take that fight. Even though he has a shotgun himself, he chooses option B, and guess what happens when I'm already pre-aiming there and he just steps out? He gets plastered. This kind of situation where you know the enemy is watching a corner expecting you to peek out is where a jump peek or slide peek may be necessary. Like in this case, I hipfire this guy a bit, go back in. I now know that he knows where I am and he's going to be ready to shoot there, and in fact he's going to continuously fire there, so if I just step back out, I'm going to be like this guy, so we've got to put in a jump peek or a slide peek to win that engagement. So it's up to you how you feel about doing that. Your only other option is to run away or maybe wait a few seconds till they lose interest and then pop out. Maybe you might catch them out, but this kind of peeking is there if you want it. It's still quite high risk and not always effective. When the alternative is this, well, it's up to you. The other kind of sliding I think is less optional is defensive sliding. Using slide to get yourself out of trouble and save your own life. I think this is less optional and every player should learn to do this. A quick jump into a slide can definitely save your life in a lot of situations. And again, it's all part of not staying still and making yourself harder to hit. There is limitations on this, thankfully, though. You can only really do one jump slide before it runs out of juice. If you try to do 2 or 3 in a row, it doesn't really work. So you kind of want to learn to sprinkle them between all your other movement, between your strafing and your crouch tapping and your proning. And even for something as simple as crossing the street, you can just run across the street, but you could also jump slide across the street. If we compare them side by side, it looks like it doesn't take any difference in time to get across the street in either way, but when we slow it down, you'll see that when you do the jump, it may have made our hitbox a little bit smaller, but might not help if somebody's shooting center mass, and isn't any faster. As you can see, both examples have reached the middle of the road at the same time in my crosshair, but landing into a slide actually does accelerate you a little bit. As you can see, the sliding example has reached the van a little bit before the running guy, so it gets you around just a little bit quicker and might throw off somebody's tracking if you suddenly accelerate a little bit faster. And while it might only be a millisecond or 2 of difference, that can be the difference between life and death in this game. And again, if you end up point blank with somebody, a quick jump slide might get you out of trouble. So that's a lot of the important elements to movement in my book. It's up to you how much of it you use. I appreciate people enjoy Battlefield in different ways, and I really do think some elements of the movement are optional if you find them a little too fast-paced, a little too Call of Duty, and absolutely some of those things aren't needed to be good at the game. And while I've mostly been showing examples of close-range situations, it all applies to longer-range situations as well. You'll want to keep that movement going as much as possible, strafing, crouch tapping, minimizing your exposure. So understand, keeping moving is very important, but that's not to say that you should never ever sit still anywhere. Sometimes in defensive positions, it might be fine if you can find a good little spot. You just got to use a bit of common sense. Alright, on to the next reason you might suck.
You don't know when to engage.
So a lot of people, I think they struggle with an itchy trigger finger. As soon as they see an enemy, they've got to shoot at them, regardless of the situation, the distance, their weapon. It's just, there's an enemy, let's take some shots whether I can kill them or not. This often just ends up giving you away. You lose any advantage you did have and you put it onto an even playing field. So I implore a little bit of patience. When you see enemies that haven't seen you, don't get all excited and rush after them. Take your time, be patient, see if there's a good opportunity to take them out. If not, maybe just let them go. You don't have to go after everyone you see. But now to the bigger issue of what I think gets a lot of newer players killed. It's not knowing or understanding when you're in the advantaged or disadvantaged position, the latter being more of a problem. We'll get to that in a sec, but first let's understand the situations of combat that we find ourselves in. The first one is the easy kill situation. This is when you get the jump on somebody and you take them out before they even know what hit them. This can sometimes be down to good positioning, good flanking, or just downright luck. And of course, this is the situation we want to find ourselves in as much as possible. If every engagement of yours was like this, you'd pretty much never get shot at, and thus you'd be 50-0 every game. But of course, on the contrary, then there's the easy death situation. This is just the opposite, it's just happening to you now, the times when you get killed when you didn't even see where the guy was. It might be your own bad positioning, or maybe just bad luck, or with any luck, maybe the guy will mess it up, like so. These are going to happen sometimes, but we want to try and minimize them. And then there's the even situation. This is when two boys come face to face, they know where each other are, and they both know it's about to go down. It then becomes a short competition of who's got the better movement, who's got the better aim, and somebody wins. But the trick here that I think a lot of people don't realize is sometimes when they're actually disadvantaged in these kind of fights, when it might seem like it's even. There are some very small nuances to combat that are easy to miss but could make a huge difference. Example. Here I step out from around a corner and run into this sprinting sausage. Now Sausage Man here, because he's sprinting, his weapon isn't up, which means he has to stop and pull his weapon up to be able to fire at me, and that might only take half a second or so, but my weapon's already up, so I have the advantage, and he is in fact at a disadvantage. So what he should do here is just take a step to his right, get into cover, and then figure out a way to engage me on a more even playing field. But Sausage Bro tries his luck, and in the time it took him to stop and pull up his weapon, I'd probably already fired 2 bullets, and thus he lost. Alright, reverse example now. I step into this room and I see a man looking straight at me. His laser is up, he's ADS. Guess what? He is the advantaged party in this situation. And me with my crosshair nowhere near him and not ADS, I can't hip fire from here. I am the disadvantaged one, so I'm gonna step aside and live to fight another day. Now a little psychological war ensues. The guy that just saw me is now thinking, is he gonna step back out where he was? Is he gonna run around these blocks and come at me from that angle? Or is he just gonna run away and disappear? Well, I'm going to take the ballsy gamble option and step out just like I told you not to do earlier. It's a little more reasonable at this kind of range, and when shotguns aren't involved, I can step out and have an even fight. But in this case, I happen to have caught him sprinting, so now I'm the advantaged one, although we have to notice his little friend here who also is ADSing, so I know I'm still kind of disadvantaged and I need to move right after taking my shots. And with a little evasive movement, I'm able to just about survive, but this is where I think most people go wrong. They don't know when they're in a disadvantaged fight and when to fall back from it, and what do you know, that gets them killed. It is a very fine thing to know though, it takes some practice to get the sense of it. A few more examples for clarity. Here I go, turning left, a little guy pops up on my right. Now my instinct is going to kick in here and you're going to see me try to ADS him, but I'm quickly going to realize, nope, bad idea, I'm disadvantaged, fall back from this one. In this one, I'm scoping around, taking some shots, and then I scope over this way and see this guy right here. Again, instinct to try and take the fight kicks in, but I quickly realize, nope, get down, get out of cover. He started firing first. I'm going to get at him from a different angle instead and try to get an advantage or at least an even fight. Or here, I'm going to be the one that gets caught sprinting now. There isn't really a lot of options here other than prone ball shot. Classic. Also realize the importance of moving out the way when someone starts shooting at you, unlike this guy who takes a whole mag before he starts to move. But this is another mistake in a similar vein, is when you're shooting at stuff and then somebody starts shooting you from the side, you get the little indicators, you get the suppression, you know they're there shooting at you, and then I think a lot of people's instinct is to turn and try to fight back. This simply takes too much time. You've got to turn, locate the guy, ADS, and then fire, all while being shot by him. It's not going to happen. So simply get out the way, use some evasive movement, jump, slide, whatever you need to do to get out of there, and live to fight another day. A lot of people like to seem to turn and try to fight these fights, and it just never really ends well unless the other person happens to be a horrible shot. So don't be tempted to try and turn and fight these fights when somebody's already shooting at you. Evade and then try to get to a position where you can make it an even fight, or better yet, an advantaged fight. And the same thing with gunfights in general. Sometimes you'll be shooting at people and you'll start taking damage because they're shooting back, and if it feels like a little too much damage, then evasion might be the better call in that moment rather than getting greedy with the kills. As an example of myself making this mistake, somebody shoots me in the back here, I turn and try to take the fight, and it ends really well. What I should have done here is kept running towards that doorway ahead of me because I lost pretty much half my health from this. I was never going to win this fight re-peeking in this way. I could have maybe flanked around the crate and damaged him a bit and then run away again. But hey ho, we're all going to make these kind of mistakes sometimes, and like I say, it does take some feeling out to get used to this, to understand when you are disadvantaged in a gunfight and you should maybe fall back, or whether you are the advantaged one and you should press the attack. But like I say, I think this is a big one where a lot of people fall down trying to take fights that they're disadvantaged in, and these disadvantages might only be like a half a second or a few milliseconds of difference, but that can be the difference between how many bullets enters your enemy before enters you. So you've got to try and fight your instincts to fight back in some cases, and find a way to even the odds. Alright, next.
You have the awareness of a chair leg.
So awareness is key to know when and where enemies might be coming from, and the first tool we have available for this is of course your minimap. Checking your minimap fairly constantly is the best way to know what's going on around you. For example, coming into C here, I'm going to send this guy to Jesus, and then to my left I can see 2 dots, so I'm going to go over there, get one of them. The other one dies of emotional damage, seeing me take out his friend. I'm now scanning the minimap again. I see a guy at the back here next to the pipe, so I'm going to make my way around there carefully, still keeping an eye on the actual situation in front of me, of course, because not everyone is marked on the map. But when people are firing without a suppressor or within 15 meters of you, they will show up on the minimap. I now notice a guy coming in behind me, gonna fire at him. He somehow doesn't seem to take any care of where I am and the fact that I just shot him, just runs out in front of me. Good stuff. I then can see the couple of dots still floating around above me, and I hear a parachute noise and a wild Wookiee appears. I'm now going to go around the back to see if I can get these dots that are above me somewhere by these chimneys, looking around for those. And I'm going to see the guy coming up behind me about now. So that's going to save me right there, looking at the minimap. And there's 2 more guys in this area. So you got to get yourself into the habit of just flicking your eye to the minimap every now and again when you're traveling between A and B. You've got a little bit of downtime. There's no one to shoot at. Just check the minimap, gather information, and see what's going on. Learn where the enemies are, where they might be coming from, where they might be going. And that is going to help you a ton. Here I can see a dot through this alleyway. I know this map. I know roughly where he's going to be, so I'm going to creep up on him, and what do you know, there he is. Now flicking my eyes to the map again, I can see there's guys where I just came from, so I know to be ready to look back there. I pop a little shot in somebody, and then a whole gang of them come, and well, hilarity ensues. So understand that the minimap is king, and you've got to utilize it to gain advantage over other players so you can outplay them. It's also worth experimenting with the minimap view distance. You can see here, this is 160. I can see my man popping shots, but as I step back, I can no longer see him anymore, even though he's still right there. But if I bump my map up to 250 or 300, well, now I can see those shots that I couldn't see on the 160. The orange dot is now coming up, so technically you can see a lot more when you have the more zoomed out map, but you obviously lose the close-up detail. So it's up to you which you like. I've been using 250. It feels like a nice sweet spot between detail and distance. And of course, to aid your own minimap and everyone else's, do try to mark enemies when you see them, although I do have to admit I've become a bit lazy with it in Battlefield 6. I think it's because when I ping, I sometimes accidentally put a waypoint for my squad instead because it's on the same annoying key. But yeah, generally, marking is very important, very powerful. There's a bunch of ways to do it, of course, in this game, so just got to get into that habit. The next big element to awareness is, of course, audio, namely footsteps, but pretty much everything you do in this game makes noise. If you slide, if you crouch, even if you ADS or reload, enemy players can hear that. Now, of course, a lot of that is hidden by the in-game noises of gunshots, explosions, vehicles, etc. So it's mostly footsteps you're listening out for. Like here, I can hear some footsteps around me. I guess people just saw me on the minimap shooting, and what do you know, 2 guys appear. So paying attention to enemy footsteps can definitely save your life a lot and let you set up ambushes. And naturally, remember that this works both ways. So if you're someone who just sprints everywhere all the time, well, you might want to slow down a little bit, at least if you're getting close to enemies or if you're trying to sneak up on somebody, because sprinting footsteps especially are pretty damn loud. Another big part of awareness is simply map knowledge, which is just knowing your way around the map, knowing the corners where people like to sit, the angles that they might like to hold in any given area, the direction in which they spawn and where they might come from. All of this kind of stuff is largely just passively learned over time. The more you play, the more hours you put in, the more of these little nuances of the maps and things you're going to learn. So there's no real skill to this, no real example I can give you of it. It's just learning it for yourself and also learning what kind of works for you and your playstyle. For example, when I first started learning the Manhattan Bridge level in Breakthrough, the start of it here, I had no idea how to play this area. It's very open, a lot of long-range angles, snipers everywhere. I could never really get a feel for playing this area well. until I discovered this little rocky beach area where this kind of works for me. I can get a nice flanking position. I'd often play support here, take some deployable cover. Whether I'm attacking or defending, this is usually the area where I'm hanging out because I just kind of know how to play it now. I know where to look, I know where the enemies can come from, I know where not to stand too long because I might get sniped in the face, which is here. So you got to figure out the different areas for yourself. And of course there's smaller bits of map knowledge like this. We all know this area on the A point of Siege of Cairo. There's a guy going under here. Oh, I wonder where he's going. Oh, look, there he is. So we're just thinking ahead because we know the map, we know where people might go. You also get to learn all the cheeky little spots and angles that you can find throughout the maps. And these might just offer you various little ways to outplay opponents, even if only for a kill or two. And then of course there's the situational awareness of whatever game mode you're playing. Is it Rush? Is it Conquest? Is it Breakthrough? These are all objective based game modes that require you to protect or attack certain things. PTFO is essentially what I'm saying here, but it's just that awareness to actually see what's going on around those situations. Are the enemy team pushing your breakthrough objective and they're about to take it? Well, then you need to get your body and everyone else needs to get their bodies on the point to stop that from happening. So you need to pay attention when it looks like the enemies are gathering and starting to make a push for the point. That's when you might need to do the same and counter it. Or trying to avoid the classic breakthrough mistake of your team taking one point and then they go and start to take the second point, but then they lose the first point before they've taken the second point. Notice where your team is congregated. If there's 20 players on point B, you're probably not needed over there. But if there's nobody on point A or only a couple of boys on point A and there's a squad attacking point A, you might be needed on point A. But this is just what you need to do if you want to win the match. If all you want to do is chase around kills, then yeah, I guess go to point B. And I do have to call out a pet peeve of mine, is there's a special place in hell for tank players who refuse to put themselves in any kind of danger to support the team. Generally, sure, it's wise to stay back with the tank and take your shots, but when you see the team pushing up to take an objective, that's when the tank needs to come up, because it can be the difference between taking an objective or not. Yes, there's going to be risk to your tank, you might lose your precious tank, but welcome to Battlefield. And the same goes for you, stubborn sniper players who refuse to change to any other class because you want to do your sniping. It can be really helpful to get more bodies on the point in game modes like Rush and Breakthrough, so having a quarter of your team or half of your team all sniping from a rooftop is, they're probably not doing that much for the objective now, are they? Having the good sense to notice when there's too many snipers on a team and changing, that's the mark of an absolute champ. Alright, rant over. The next reason you suck at Battlefield?
You don't get tactical.
So with shooter games, a lot of people will tell you that, well, it's all about aim. If you don't have good aim, you're never going to be good at the game. And well, that's, yeah, okay, largely true. But still, there are a lot of ways to outplay people, regardless of how good your aim is. And it all starts with the simplest form, I think, in repositioning. When somebody knows where you are, it's not a good idea to stay there for this reason. So with that, rule number one of repositioning is when somebody knows where you are, you probably want to move. Very often when somebody's seen you and they can't shoot you, they'll throw some kind of explosive. And I know this because I do this all the time when I play Assault. If I hit somebody and soften them up and they go into cover, a GL grenade will usually quickly follow to finish them off. Or the other way around, soften them up with the grenade, finish them off with the shots. So when you stay in your position, when you know I know you're there, you allow me to work against you in whatever way I like. For example, let's say I step out from behind this van and we see Timmy over here behind a car. Now I spot Timmy, he's aiming at me, he takes a couple of shots, so I understand he's got the advantage, and I fall back. Now, just like earlier, if I step out here, Timmy's going to be pre-aiming this, he's going to mow me down the moment I step out. So what would be ideal here is for us to find another angle to come at Timmy from. Instead of peeking out there, we could come around here. We're going to make him move his aim, so his pre-aiming doesn't quite count as much anymore. We could come at all different angles, and when Timmy stays where he is, if he just sits there, waiting for me to appear, he allows me to move on him in all different ways. I have the advantage, I know where he is, I can find all these angles where I don't even have to step into his crosshair at all, and thus I can take him out easily. So what's better to happen here for Timmy is for him not to stay there. Once I disappear behind the van, he could move a little bit, he could go somewhere else, he could try to get a flanking position on me and out-reposition me. So be careful of staying in the same position too long. Even in the short term or the long term, when you stay in the same spot, people figure out how to work against you. Alright, a few repositioning examples. Here I am, Empire State, looking for some dudes down this side. When I step out here, I spot these two dudes, one up high, one down low, maybe another one here as well. Now my natural instinct is going to tell me to shoot one, which I try and then quickly realize I'm disadvantaged, so I fall back. And I'm expecting them to give chase, and they'll probably expect me to be about here. So I'm not going to be here when they get here, and instead I'll try to take the flanking position on them. Only one guy did come, but I heard his footsteps. I know he's here somewhere. I see his little head bobbling around, soften him up with the M4, finish him off with a shotgun. classic reposition. In this one, I see two guys running down an alleyway. I managed to nearly get one of them, but I feel like I'm going to get shot up by two, so I reposition. Going to go all the way to the end of this building to see if I can see them from the windows here, and what do you know, there they are, still waiting for me, making it easy for me to move on them because they didn't reposition. This one, Iberian, point B, a big group of enemies coming for point B. I just was up in the window, so gonna reposition from the window, catch two of them coming up the stairs. I'm now pretty low on health. I know there's probably more coming, so I'm gonna reposition again, take a little tumble out the window, heal myself up, and I can see enemies on the minimap above me, roughly somewhere where I just was. So we're gonna go up there looking for a flank, and boy, do we get a little hose down triple. It's also really important to reposition a lot when trying to fight multiple people by yourself. Like here, I'm going to use this bush to keep moving after every kill, because of course we can barely take one person's bullets, let alone two or three, so you've got to break that line of sight, keep moving around, and pop up when they don't expect it. This can also have a pretty good psychological effect because it might feel to them like they're being attacked by more than one person when really it's just you moving around in different spots. And that kind of psychology can keep people from pushing you if they feel like there's 2 or 3 people up there rather than one. So pretty nice to pull off when you've got a spot to do it. So try not to sit in any one place too long once you've been shot. Like this guy, he's peeking this corner, he forces me down here. I'm going to stay down here for a second and hope that he loses interest in looking up here, and I'll pop back out. There he is, right in the same spot. Easy kill. He should have repositioned. In this one, I'm going to miss a cheeky little corner camper here. He's going to shoot me in the back. But I'm a vengeful spirit. When someone does this to me, I'm going to come back for them. And so when I re-arrive at this point on my next life, I'm going to throw a grenade. Not very well. Should have gone further in. But I hurt him for 80 health. So I'm going to chase him down and get my revenge. Never would have happened if he had moved. And of course, remember, when you kill somebody, they get to see exactly where you are. And so if they get brought back to life, guess where they're looking when they come back. And tying into repositioning is another very simple and effective tactic, flanking. Flanking can be applied in simple one-on-one situations or against a large group. For example here, I just killed a guy, he got revived. I shot his friend a little bit, but then he was looking my way, so I'm going to flank all the way around here, and guess what? He's still looking that way. Nearly got his friend as well. This one here, Rush, defending the A point on Cairo. Knowing this point and that the enemy are going to be coming from over here in their spawn, and they're going to come down these two ways, we can know kind of where they're going to be. So with this random bit of smoke cover and not seeing any orange dots out here, I'm going to take a bit of a risky maneuver. I might get shot in the back. Somebody might be running who I haven't seen, but I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to get the jump on two guys, an easy little flank that allows us to circle back to safety into A. This one, Empire State, enemies pushing on the final breakthrough point, and again, knowing where their spawn is and seeing all the orange dots line up, it looks like there's a bit of a front line forming, and we can flank front lines. So I'm going to make my way around there, and what do we see? Oh, a tasty bunch of dots. Now, unfortunately for me, I've just unlocked the Vector. I'm trying it out. It's only got 17 bullets, so I can't kill more than one at a time. But you can see the powerful opportunities that a little bit of flanking can give you just for your own personal gaining of kills. But you can also potentially make some big plays. Like on Empire State here, this bit, everyone knows this bit. It's a rough bit to try and get up there as attackers. But sneaking our way through the building, we can get the flanking position on this area and sneak up on all the guys defending it. And if we can thin them out significantly, those 5 boys down there could push in and we could take this point and start attacking A from this angle. So think about how you could flank strong enemy defensive positions. Because areas like this often become a meat grinder of just 2 groups of guys all smashing into each other until one of them pushes through the other. So you can charge into the meat grinder and be a part of that if you want, or you could go for the flanking position where you can net some kills and make a difference. See my death there caused by staying in the same place too long. Eventually though, my team's going to push in, revive me, and we've now captured this bit and we can start pushing A from this side. Flanking is just really good to do in many situations, to be honest, even if you can play a certain wide angle of the map, cut off the enemy's routes, cut off places where the enemy can be. Even if you're not getting a ton of kills, you're just being a problem, and that can create some serious impact in a game. So don't always charge into that meat grinder, look for different angles that you can approach from. But those are bigger, more broader tactics to use. How about some little ones? I think gunfights can sometimes be more tactical than people realize. Like this one, I run around the corner, catch a guy sprinting. I now think he's going to run straight towards me. He's probably going to try and fire at me. But no, he goes for a slide, gets to cover and dodges my shots. He then starts pre-firing here where he's expecting me to pop out. Fires a grenade, they're expecting me to pop out again. Nearly gets me with it, but a little stun grenade gives me the victory. A fun little fight with a bunch of tactics used. Here's some others. How about a good old classic ambush? When you can hear enemies or see them on the minimap and you know where they're about to pop out, you can lie in wait and mow them down. How about a good old Mongolian tactic, the feigned retreat? When an enemy starts shooting at you, you run away as if you're terrified and scared and please don't kill me, sir. But you actually find yourself a nice spot to lie in wait, and they, in their bloodthirsty rage and feeling like they're going to get an easy kill, charge after you and get murdered. Or again, in a similar vein, how about just feigning ignorance to somebody's existence? Here I'm running away, I do a little slide, I see this guy in the coffee shop, but I'm going to keep moving like I haven't seen him, he's going to think I'm an easy kill, and well, doodle-loop. And then, of course, there's the simple power of predicting where people are going to be. I shoot one guy, I kill his friend. The first guy didn't die, though, and I know he can flank around here, so this is probably where he's coming. Let's get those nuts off, sir. A little peeking tactic with minimal exposure. You just peek out just for the second, shooting where the enemy is. It's a little risky, but if you can just take a tight angle and not let people see too much of you, it's not too bad. How about listening for a little enemy mag dump? I'm going to run into this fight. I'm going to hit the ground, though, because I feel disadvantaged. I did a double take looking up at those windows. But if we listen... From that sounded like a lot of shots, so I feel like he's run out of ammo. I pop up, catch him changing to his shotgun. Too little, too late. This one, a little bit risky, but if you get severely injured and you go into cover, people often feel like you're going to run away. So they'll rush after you, and when they rush after you, you can do a little risky repeek and catch them sprinting. Don't forget that stealth is useful in this game. Here I notice a guy upstairs killing my squad mates, so I'm not going to sprint up there to give myself away. I quietly crouch walk, and he runs right into me. And of course, use all the tools and gadgets you have available. Stun grenades are pretty damn great. They stop people being able to sprint and ADS. I find these super handy. I use them quite a lot. There are the flash grenades as well, but they take a while to go off, unlike the stun grenades that go off pretty much straight away. So I much prefer stun grenades. And then, of course, there's the flashlight that you can put on guns. That can be quite disorientating in the right situation. Ladders, great for weird flanks and hitting people where they don't think you can come from. And then, of course, there's just good old destruction. Bringing a building down on somebody's head if they're causing a problem, that's a good option. So there's a lot of ways to tactically outplay people. You just got to use your head and learn to find those opportunities. Alright, the last reason you might suck at Battlefield.
You are careless, reckless, and or stupid.
This point is all about being a bit less mindless and a bit more mindful. The amount of people charging into suicidal situations and getting themselves needlessly killed is alarmingly common. So a few Captain Obvious things to think about. Try not to charge into terrible situations where there's loads of enemies, tanks and all sorts. And that can sometimes even mean something as simple as crossing the street. If you don't look both ways and check there's no enemies looking down that street, you might catch yourself a death. Be aware of maps with lots of snipers, and instead of just running in a straight line to your destination, run like you're mentally unstable and do all sorts of weird stuff. Jump, slide, zigzag, stop, start. All of this is going to make you a much harder target to hit, because if you just run in a straight line at a constant speed, it's very easy for snipers to line you up or for someone to track you with an assault rifle and mow you down. Be aware of the meat grinder areas, like this bit I mentioned on Empire State earlier, or this middle C point on Siege of Cairo, points where people just charge in without really thinking about the fact that there's 5 guys in buildings looking down on that point, and instead of trying to get rid of those guys, they just try to stand around and survive them instead. Or how about the entire start of Mirak Valley Breakthrough, which is just a massive meat grinder. There's not really a lot of other ways to play it, but on these maps you want to run around a bit more carefully, keep your head down, use the brows of hills as much as possible, and smug the crap out of everything, and maybe you can survive and do something useful. And often there is another way to approach things, like this Empire State bit. I mentioned about flanking it earlier, but sometimes just go to B. B is very rarely defended on this second part of this breakthrough map, and it's usually a pretty easy run in and take it, and then you can move to A from there. No need to charge into that meat grinder 5 times and die when you could just come round here. That being said though, sometimes the meat grinder is necessary. If you're contesting a point, you've got to fight over it, you need bodies on the point, and points like this, again, Empire State Breakthrough, the very first point, is a meat grinder, and if you want to win it, sometimes you got to get stuck in onto it into the meat grinder. But sometimes there might be other useful things you could do to help that meat grind anyway, such as, in this case, there's an infestation of guys in the back streets here around our A point, so I'm going to get rid of them so they can't attack us from that angle. And then, of course, there's tanks that can cause you a lot of unnecessary deaths if you don't listen out for them, if you don't look on the minimap for them. I'm amazed at the amount of people that'll just stand in front of a tank and get gunned down. If I'm fighting somewhere and a tank rolls up, I'm usually not playing engineer to do anything about it, so my best bet is to simply reposition and fight somewhere else to be useful, because there's not much I can do to this tank. Bad spawns is another cause of silly deaths that can be easily avoided if you just take a little time. Look at where your squad mates are. Are they recently in combat? Are they near an objective? Are they near enemies on the minimap? Are they in an exposed area? You can look at their body cam and see that. And if in doubt, if it feels a little unsafe, just spawn on an objective or back at spawn. It's only going to take you 10 or 20 seconds longer to get back into the fight. Be careful of the fights you take. This is kind of an engagement and awareness thing, but here I see a sniper looking down the street, and I could shoot back with my carbine, but the advantage is his. Why not get closer and take take away that advantage. And that works the other way as well. If you notice somebody's got a shotgun, like here I kill this guy, another guy comes up the stairs. He probably should have heard that I used a shotgun to kill his friend, but he still tries to come after me even though he doesn't have a shotgun himself. And guess what? At this range, shotgun wins. So if you notice somebody's got the shotgun advantage, you might want to get some distance or just get out of there. If you're a loner player like me, you might find yourself attacking objectives by yourself, and that can be incredibly risky. But if you position yourself somewhere where you know you can kind of get away and get out of there if you need to, it can still be pretty handy to attack a point. Even if you can't take it, if you start taking it, it's going to draw enemies in to come and try and defend it, or it might draw your allies in to come and help. And even though you might not be able to solo cap it, you can still facilitate the push for it, but get yourself out of there if you need to. Because chances are if you're by yourself and 5 dudes show up, you're not going to be able to fend them off, so you should probably just get out of there and avoid the unnecessary death. But there we go, 5 reasons why you might suck at Battlefield 6. I hope you've enjoyed this, thanks for watching. If you found this video useful or you learned something useful, please do consider liking the video, it helps it out a lot, and any of those other useful algorithm things. This channel is just getting started with Battlefield, so consider coming along for the journey.